A thrum beneath the soil. A rhythm in the air. I felt it in my teeth. She was here, Kaeli whispered. Not long ago. You mean the clone? I asked carefully. Kaeli didn't correct me, her signals fractured. They're trying to calibrate her. But she's pulling away. Her instincts are too strong. I crouched beside her. Is that good or bad? Kaeli blinked, eyes flickering. Not quite hers. That depends which part of me they copied. Suddenly, the ground split. A narrow stairwell opened where no door had been. The stone crumbled inward like something had pushed up from below. Kaeli turned to me. She's awake. We descended into the dark, no lights. No footsteps. Just the distant hum of abandoned tech breathing in sleep mode. My torch barely cut through the mist. Everything smelled like dust and coolant. Then I saw it, a figure standing in the far chamber. She looked exactly like Kaeli, same eyes, same height, same scars along her cheek, but not her. Her presence was colder. Tighter. No confusion. No soul behind the gaze. Just precision. Kaeli stepped forward, the copy mirrored her, they stood 10 feet apart. You know who I am, Kaeli said quietly. The copy nodded. I'm what you couldn't become. Who told you that? They didn't have to. I stepped between them. We don't have to fight. The copy looked at me, and smiled. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to replace. Then she lunged. Kaeli caught her midair. The blast knocked me back against the corridor wall. Sparks tore across the ceiling. For a moment, just a flicker, I saw both of them glow, identical frequencies. Opposing cores, they were never meant to meet, their resonance screamed through the vault, like glass shattering in the mind. I reached for Kaeli, shouting her name, but the darkness swallowed them both. I came to on the floor of the vault, smoke drifted through the fractured chamber. Something had shorted the central power node, half the ceiling was gone, and thin arcs of blue electricity danced across the beams. I could still hear them, Kaeli and her copy, moving through the dark like mirrored storms. Their fight wasn't like anything I'd seen before. There was no blood, just resonance, a war of pulses. Each strike cracked the air like reality itself was straining. And in every collision, something bled, not flesh, but memory. I saw flickers. A child's laugh. A room of white lights. Kaeli screaming behind glass. Then her copy, curled in a tube of coolant, eyes wide open long before she should have woken. The blueprint was split, one life raised in shadows. The other in fire. Kaeli emerged from the haze first. Her right arm was sparking, veins glowing faintly with violet lines. Her breath came fast. She's not just a clone, she said. She's a resonance trap. They built her to cancel me out. The copy stepped forward, mouth bloodless. You're unstable. You always were. Kaeli smiled grimly. And you're empty. You always will be. The next hit shattered the wall behind them. The vault began to collapse, stone and steel buckling under the strain. I pushed myself up, shouting for Kaeli, but the air was too thick. A shriek of static filled the room. Then the memory burst came. It wasn't visual. It was felt, pain. A cage. A voice calling her Subject 9. A test that kept repeating. The same corridor. The same scream. Over and over until she forgot who she was. Kaeli dropped to one knee, but her copy dropped lower, because this wasn't her memory, it belonged to Kaeli alone, and it burned the copy from the inside. She turned toward me, face twitching. You're anchoring her, the copy said. Your presence is what makes her remember. I didn't flinch. Good. Then I reached for Kaeli, my Kaeli, and pulled her up. She looked into my eyes, and remembered everything. With a final burst, Kaeli lifted her hand, and instead of pushing her copy back, she pulled, not physically. Psychically, forcing every broken echo, every haunted scream, every piece of her fragmented soul into the mirror, until it overloaded. Her copy screamed, and then folded inward, collapsing like a waveform losing coherence. Gone. Silence returned. Kaeli fell into my arms, shaking. I didn't want to kill her, she whispered. She was part of me. I held her close. That's why you're still human. We left the vault just before it collapsed entirely. Above us, the sky was flickering, white static rolling in strange, slow waves, but we weren't safe. because back at the spire. Another choice was unfolding, spire base, same time, Jaren stood under the cracked sky, hands empty. Senya approached from the edge of the platform, flanked by 2 hunter drones and her ever-present calm. "You're late," she said. "I was never coming," Jaren replied. She arched one brow. "Yet here you are." He tossed the small blood vial at her feet. She didn't bend to pick it up. "One of the drones did. Is this a trick?" She asked. "No," he said. "It's Kaeli's sample. You wanted a way to bind the hybrid? That's your key." Senya tilted her head. "Why give it to me?" "Because if I don't, you'll take it from Rael." She stepped closer. "And what do you want in return?" "Leave him alone," Jaren said. "Take the sample, do whatever you're going to do, but leave my brother out of it." Senya studied him for a long moment, then she smiled. "Cold, precise, you've just given away the future," she said. "Let's hope you know what that costs." The drone turned and disappeared into the lift. Jaren stayed behind, alone, under the drowning sky. The tunnels bent downward, no lights. No pulse beacons. Just the scent of damp stone and old circuitry. The kind of dark that felt heavy. Alive. We moved slowly, one hand on the wall, the other holding the wounded man steady between us. Kaeli whispered to me, "He's still breathing." Barely. His name was Tuvin. A refugee from the border camps. One of the few who'd seen the gate massacre from inside. We found him at the edge of Sector 13, bleeding and delirious. The drones had hit hard. No warnings. No questions. Just fire. He told us to follow the old survey lines. Said someone named Ashur could help. That name echoed in my head now, Ashur. The last resistance archivist. The one they never caught. We reached the threshold around second bell, an old pressure door sealed behind collapsed debris, half crushed, half buried in rebar and ash. Kaeli knelt and pressed her hand to the interface panel. It lit up. Faintly, not grid light. Something older. The door shuddered, then split open with a groan like dying metal. Beyond it was a vault unlike any I'd ever seen. No weapons. No command seats. Just records, etched walls. Glass slates. Floating data threads glowing in static amber light. Symbols from before the Exodus. Before even the spire codes, Kaeli stepped inside like she'd been here before, and waiting at the far end, seated in a chair made of woven copper and stone, was a man with ink-black eyes and a voice like cracked earth. "A long time coming," he said. "Rael Torma." "And Kaeli." I raised my guard. "Ashur." He nodded once. "Last of the free scribes. And the only one stubborn enough not to die when Senya burned the truth." Kaeli narrowed her eyes. "Why help us?" Ashur stood, slow and deliberate, "Because your blood, child, carries what they feared most." He walked to one of the suspended slates and tapped a sequence. The room dimmed, a projection bloomed between us, grainy, stuttering, but real, a memory, Kaeli as a child. Younger than I remembered. Surrounded by white suits. Machines humming. A woman's voice from off-screen saying, "Activate primary mnemonic bind." Then, the projection stuttered, and another face appeared, mine, older. Scarred. Eyes like I'd seen too much. And my voice said, "If you're watching this, it means I failed." But she didn't. Kaeli is not a weapon. She's the map. The last route to the hollow path. Kaeli took a step back. Ashur turned to her. "You were never just a child. You were a message. A key encoded in biology and memory. Your entire existence was the Resistance's final contingency." Kaeli looked at me, voice low. "So that dream. The one with the child in the snow." Ashur nodded. "Real. A future trying to remember itself." She sank to her knees. I knelt beside her, held her hand. "This is what they've been trying to erase," I said. Ashur pointed to the ceiling, where new light patterns flickered. "They're close. Senya's drones just breached the lower gate. You have minutes." Kaeli stood again. "What happens if they reach this place?" Ashur didn't flinch. "Then history dies. And you become exactly what they made you to be, a weapon with no past." I looked at the wounded man, Tuvin, barely breathing, then at Kaeli, who was still shaking, but not retreating. "We stay," I said. "And we fight." Ashur smiled faintly. "Good. Then listen carefully. There's one more truth you need to see." He raised a final slate, the one marked Project Daughter, and as the room began to tremble from the approaching drones, I knew the real story hadn't even started yet. The first drone hit the outer vault like thunder. Kaeli flinched. I stepped in front of her, shoulder to shoulder with Ashur. He didn't move. Just stared into the dark, like he'd seen this exact moment play out 100 times before. "They've breached the outer tier," he said calmly. "We have 60 seconds. The archive's light dimmed around us, amber threads folding into the walls like a closing eye. Ashur walked to the central pillar and lifted a crystal shard from its cradle. The whole room pulsed once, like it was alive. "This," he said, holding the shard toward Kaeli, "is everything. Project Daughter. The real purpose. Not the lies Senya fed the council. The truth encoded in you before you could speak." Kaeli took the shard with shaking hands. "What do I do with it?" "You survive," Ashur said. "You run. You carry it out of this tomb and into the light." I touched his arm. "There has to be another way." He turned to me, and for the first time, I saw the tremble in his jaw. "I've been preparing for this for 20 years, Rael. Let an old man do one last thing right." The floor vibrated. Stone cracked, the second drone crashed through the inner gate, sleek, black, serpentine. Hunter class. No insignias. No warnings. Kaeli's eyes lit with gold. "I can feel it. Like something waking up inside me." Ashur smiled. "Then let it speak." Kaeli stepped forward, arms raised, lips parted like she was hearing a melody none of us could. The drone moved fast, but her pulse moved faster. A wave of white-blue energy erupted from her chest, controlled, this time. The drone convulsed in midair, then shattered like glass caught in a sonic blast. Ashur moved fast too. He dropped to the terminal and inserted a second shard, routing the data through all available public bands, he said. Civilian channels. Old pirate frequencies. Even ChildNet toys. If they want to bury the truth, they'll have to dig through a billion echoes. The walls began to crumble. Sparks lit the vault. Kaeli was screaming, but not from pain. From effort. From release. Like she'd been holding this in her entire life. Ashur met my eyes one last time. "Go. Now." I didn't argue. I grabbed Kaeli's arm, pulled her through the crumbling breach, up the old shaft toward the outer corridor. The floor behind us fell away, and Ashur stayed. His last breath was a whisper carried in static. "Let them remember." We emerged into the cold light of dawn. Grid alarms were howling, but across the sector, every screen flickered. Every child's toy. Every public loop. All of them lit up with the same projection. A younger Kaeli. In a testing chamber. Holding a small orb of light, and a voice, mine, from a time yet to come. "She's not your weapon. She's our beginning." The grid burned, not with fire, not yet, but with something worse. Awareness. Ashur's final transmission didn't just break a firewall. It broke a seal on the public mind. By mid-morning, every loop screen in Grid 9 West was replaying that flickering footage. Kaeli as a child, humming to a floating orb, watched by men in white and women in shadow, and me, speaking from a timeline I hadn't yet lived. "She's not your weapon. She's our beginning." By noon, the first protest broke out in the Midrain Commons. By evening, security stations were overrun. The outer corridors were painted in slogans, curses, and fractured sigils, the old language of the refugee codes, twisted into warnings. "The sky lies. Free the hybrid mothers. Where is the real Rael?" Kaeli watched it unfold from the upper gantry, silent. The shard Ashur gave her was still warm in her pocket. She hadn't slept. Neither had I. Jaren arrived near midnight. He looked like a ghost, face pale, uniform half-charred, one eye bruised shut. "I don't have much time," he said, voice low. "They've marked me for treason." Kaeli stood, her voice sharp. "Because of the broadcast?" He shook his head. "Because I helped send it. I stepped between them." "You helped?" Jaren nodded once. I built the loop anchor as sure needed. Tied it into civilian signal towers. Didn't know what exactly he'd push through, but I knew it would matter. I wanted to be angry. But all I felt was a dull, raw relief. You burned the fuse, I whispered. Now what? He pulled a drive crystal from his coat. There's another vault. South tier, beneath the old Terra lab. Sealed under quarantine since the collapse. It holds what's left of Phase 1, the hybrids who didn't make it. Or maybe something worse. Senya's afraid of it. That's where she's sending the purge squads next. Kaeli narrowed her eyes. Why? Jaren hesitated. Because some of them aren't fully gone. The room went quiet. Kaeli stepped closer to him, something in her shifting. I've been hearing things. In dreams. In static. A voice that sounds like me. But older. Jaren swallowed hard. Then you're waking up faster than they expected. I took the crystal from him. What do you need us to do? Get to the vault before the drones do. Secure what's still there. If any of the early subjects are alive. Or recoverable. They're the missing link. Proof that Senya violated every clause in the accord. And you? I asked. He looked out the window, toward the rising smoke. I'll buy you time. Before either of us could speak, he pressed a small beacon into my hand. If I don't make it, use this. It links to a deadman switch that'll dump every council archive I've mirrored. Even the red files. Kaeli gripped his wrist. Come with us. He shook his head. They'd track me. You're already risking enough. And then, for the first time in months, he smiled. Tell her, he said, glancing at Kaeli, that I never stopped watching. That I never forgot who we were before the grid rewrote us. Then he was gone. Kaeli stood in silence for a long time. Then she turned to me. Her voice was calm. Almost too calm. We go tonight. I nodded. To the vault. She shook her head. To the truth. We moved before first shift. The outer sky was black, rimmed with riot smoke and flickering arcs from fried comm lines. Grid 9 West was no longer a city, it was a waiting wound. Still bleeding. Still growing teeth. Kaeli didn't speak much as we walked. Her steps were precise, like she'd rehearsed this descent in some other life. The southern quarantine tier had been sealed since the collapse. No one lived past the frost line anymore. No lights. No heat. Just memory, and ghosts. The access hatch was buried beneath an old fuel station, rusted and half-collapsed. Jaren's key got us in. The stairwell creaked beneath our weight, and the deeper we went, the colder it got. By the time we reached sublevel 6, our breath had turned to mist. Kaeli stopped in front of a steel pressure door, hands trembling. Something's already awake in there, she whispered. I checked my weapon. Just a shock staff. Probably useless. Still, it felt better than nothing. We entered. The vault wasn't what I expected. No cells. No containment pods. Just rows of tall, cylindrical chambers, like glass coffins, most shattered, some intact. Inside were fragments of hybrid bodies, skeletal arms fused with tech, torsos wrapped in vine-like wire, skulls half-cloned, half-grown. I felt sick. Kaeli walked past them slowly, her fingers brushing the glass. This is where they built us, she murmured. Before they learned how to lie about it. One chamber near the far end blinked. Not power, consciousness. Kaeli stepped closer. Inside was a girl, no older than 10. Pale. Hair floating in gel. Tubes running from her spine into the wall. Eyes closed, but twitching beneath the lids, like she was dreaming, or remembering. Kaeli's voice dropped. She's not dead. The chamber's screen flashed once. Hybrid prototype, K-0.3, stasis breach, 89% mental activity. Kaeli touched the surface. The moment she did, her body jolted, and her mind was pulled in. I caught her before she fell. She wasn't breathing, Kaeli. I shouted. Talk to me. But she was gone, somewhere inside. Her eyes moved rapidly. Her fingers twitched. And then, she spoke, but not with her voice, with the girls. I remember. I remember being born, and then buried, and then replaced. My blood ran cold. I activated the portable jammer, hoping it would keep any scans off our position, but the vault light suddenly turned amber. Someone knew we were here. Kaeli gasped and sat up, eyes wide. She showed me everything. The failed link cycles. The memory fragmentation. They tried to split her mind across 6 bodies. I stared at her. They were using children to test long-range consciousness transfer. Kaeli nodded slowly. And I think they succeeded. Once. Footsteps echoed behind us. We turned. Senya stood at the edge of the vault, flanked by a drone and something else, a girl, almost Kaeli's twin, but not quite. Her face was too still. Her eyes too empty. Her movement, like glass imitating muscle. Rael Torma, Senya said coldly. You've gone far enough. Kaeli stepped in front of me. What did you do? Senya's voice was sharp, surgical. Insurance. K-0.4 is everything you were supposed to be. Loyal. Pure. Silent. The clone tilted her head, eyes locked on Kaeli. Now come, Senya said. Or she will make you. I raised the shock staff. It felt like raising a candle against a hurricane, but Kaeli didn't move. She looked at the girl who wore her face, and whispered, I'm not afraid of myself anymore. Kaeli stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but her shoulders were tight with tension. She's not just a backup, is she? Senya's reply was quiet, almost reverent. She's a perfected divergence. Free of noise. Unburdened by failure. Kaeli's clone didn't blink. She stood with hands at her sides, passive, patient, like she was waiting for instructions that never needed to be given. Kaeli lowered her voice. You stripped everything out of her. Her fear. Her doubt. Her choices. She doesn't need them, Senya said coldly. She is function. You are error. I stepped between them. Then why bring her here, Senya? What are you trying to prove? Senya's smile didn't reach her eyes. This is not a proof. It's a pruning. Behind her, the drone's eye flared. Kaeli didn't flinch. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the old tailstone I'd given her months ago, before all this started, the one with the cracked filament and the etched sigil from my mother's line. She held it in front of the clone. I don't know what you've been told, Kaeli said softly, but I think you remember this. The clone's eyes flicked to the stone, and for a moment, just a breath of time, her stance faltered. Kaeli stepped closer. I had dreams, she whispered. Memories I didn't ask for. You've had them too, haven't you? Places you've never been. Voices that aren't yours. But they are. They're echoes of the girl we both were. The clone twitched. One hand lifted. Trembled. Senya took a step forward. Stop. Kaeli didn't. I'm not your enemy. You're not mine. We're pieces of something they tried to cut apart. The clone suddenly let out a sharp gasp. Her head jerked sideways, and she stumbled. And Kaeli caught her. Their hands touched. For the first time, I don't know how to explain what happened next. The vault lights flickered. The floor shook. A low harmonic hum filled the air, not mechanical. Biological, a resonance. Both girls stiffened. Then collapsed together, still connected by hand, eyes wide and locked in some kind of shared trance. I rushed forward, but Senya raised her hand. Don't, she warned. If they link fully, it could destabilize both of them. I ignored her and knelt beside Kaeli. Kaeli, I said, gripping her arm. If you can hear me, break it off. It's not safe. But her lips moved. They need to see. And then I saw it too, not with my eyes, but my mind. A flash, a corridor buried beneath the Exodus vaults. A sealed chamber with the symbol of the old hybrid accord etched into obsidian. A protocol. A final override. Project Echo-Root, and the words burned into my memory like fire. One voice split may sing again if the thread is remembered. Kaeli gasped and pulled back. The clone crumpled beside her, breathing, alive, but changed. Kaeli turned to me, sweat beading on her skin. She's not a clone anymore. I stared at her. She remembered. Kaeli nodded, dazed. She chose. That was the missing piece. Behind us, Senya's drone sparked suddenly, system stalling, sensors scrambling. The feedback from the link must have hit it hard. Senya stared at us in disbelief. you just compromised 3 decades of progress. Kaeli rose to her feet, helping the other girl up. No, she said, voice steel. We just reclaimed it. And then the chamber ceiling cracked. The vault's core had overloaded. Old shielding gave way. It was time to run. We escaped through the auxiliary tunnel, half carrying the reborn girl between us. Senya didn't follow, not that time, but as the vault caved in behind us, I knew this wasn't over. Kaeli had done the impossible, not by fighting, but by remembering. And somewhere in that memory, the grid had started to shift. We didn't return to the old sector. Too hot. Too many eyes. Jaren met us near the tunnel drop, his coat streaked with ash, his left sleeve torn. You're late, he muttered, helping Kaeli haul the reborn girl up the incline. She's not what they said, Kaeli panted. No one ever is, Jaren replied. We moved fast, crossed the aquifer bridge, ducked into the side vents. The resistance outpost was buried beneath a water purification relay, just far enough off-grid that Senya's sensors had blind spots. Inside, it smelled like rust, algae, and recycled fire gel. About a dozen eyes turned when we entered, some relieved. Most suspicious. Kaeli didn't flinch. This is Mira, she said simply, motioning to the girl. She's with us. No one said anything for a long moment, then one of the elders, a thin woman named Risa, with optic burns across her jaw, stood up. With us. Or in us. Kaeli stepped forward. I know what she looks like. But she made a choice. That makes her real. Risa frowned, then walked slowly to Mira and held up a candle stub, testing her eyes. No flicker. No trace of override response. Risa nodded, just barely. We'll give her a bed. No promises beyond that. That night, the lights cut out across the grid. At first, we thought it was a brownout. But then every wall lit up with color, not just the outpost, every active screen in the sector. It wasn't a warning, it was a broadcast. My voice. My image. From decades ago, from when I still wore the coat of the Accord. From when I still believed that we are the light beyond the fracture. The silence between equations. And we will endure, no matter the cost. Kaeli's eyes locked on me. Rael, what is this? I don't. I trailed off. The video cut to another memory. Me again, arguing with a hybrid elder. Words taken out of context. Rage, doubt, compromise. Every wound I'd buried. Every failure I'd silenced. Now ripped open. Amplified, Senya's voice bled into the transmission. Do you know your heroes? Do you remember what they traded? Do you see what they became? The broadcast looped, and looped again. I staggered out of the chamber. Cold air hit my face. I felt sick. Jaren caught up to me outside. She's not just coming for your body, he said. She's coming for your story. Kaeli came out behind him, her voice low and steady. Then we need to tell it first. I looked at her, at Mira, who stood behind her now, watching the stars beyond the broken dome slats. We do that, I said, they'll come harder. They already are, she said, and she was right. The war wasn't about firepower anymore. It was about memory, about who owned it, and who deserved to. We buried the recorder 5 levels down, past the coolant pipes and the moss-choked turbines. Kaeli said the signal bleed was weakest here, no stray pulses, no echoes for Senya to intercept. Just stone, silence, and memory. I sat cross-legged on the floor, palms open, breath slow. The recorder was an old hybrid node, half neural, half crystalline. It didn't just store words. It stored feeling. Cadence. Doubt. The rhythm of truth. Kaeli adjusted the modulation ring. Ready when you are. I stared at the node. Where do I start? Where it hurt, she said quietly. So I did. I spoke of the first breach. The code I cracked that I shouldn't have. The names we erased for stability. The lovers we never mourned because mourning meant they mattered. I spoke of Myra's prototype batch, how I was there when they were ordered scrapped, how I didn't stop it. I felt the node hum. It wasn't judging, just recording. Kaeli stood beside me the whole time, her hand on the failsafe circuit, her gaze sharp. We recorded for hours, then days. Others joined us. Risa. 2 engineers from Old Terrace. An ex-courier who used to run shadow routes between hybrid sectors. They told their versions. No edits. No approval codes. Just raw, unfiltered experience. We called it the archive beneath, a counter-narrative, a weapon. Mira didn't speak. Not at first. She stayed near the upper vents, sketching symbols in the dust with her fingertips, shapes that looked like star charts and neural diagrams woven together, but she watched everything, listened, and then one night, as Kaeli and I reviewed the memory strings, she came to us. I remember things, she whispered, but they're not all mine. Kaeli stood. What do you mean? I see a meadow that never existed. A name I never had. I hear someone saying, Kaeli, don't be afraid, but it's not you. It's me. Another version. Kaeli reached out slowly. Mira flinched, then let her hand rest against Kaeli's. There's something growing inside me, Mira whispered. Not a program. A choice. I nodded, heart pounding. She's diverging, I said. Kaeli's voice cracked, then she's real. Before we could say more, Jaren burst into the chamber. He was pale. Breathless. We have a problem. What is it? I asked. He tossed a small metal tag into my hands. Burned. Familiar, a soldier's ID disc. I read the name, my voice caught. Lyra. Kaeli turned. Who's Lyra? I swallowed. She was one of us. Before the accord fell apart. Before Senya turned. She vanished on a gate mission. I thought she was dead. She's not, Jaren said, she's here. She wore the face of someone I used to know, same laugh line curve. Same left brow that rose slightly when she was about to lie. Same scar along the jaw, earned pulling me from a collapsed corridor in the Shadowfront riots, but her eyes, they weren't hers, not anymore. Jaren led her into the archive chamber at knife point. She didn't resist. She moved like someone deep in a dream. Fluid. Measured, Kaeli stood protectively in front of Mira, shielding her with one arm. Who the hell is she? Kaeli asked, tense. I took a breath. Her name is Lyra Ven. She was in my unit during the last grid collapse. One of the only ones I trusted. Lyra looked at me, tilted her head slightly, like she was trying to place a face from a photograph she couldn't quite recall. That name doesn't mean anything to me, she said softly. I stepped forward, voice steady. They erased you. No, she said, shaking her head. They found me. You left me behind. Senya saved me. She gave me a new mission. A real one. Kaeli narrowed her eyes. She's been programmed. Lyra smiled faintly. I'm not the one hiding underground, whispering fairy tales into broken recorders. Jaren leaned against the wall, arms crossed. She's not armed. Yet. She doesn't need to be, I murmured. Not if they gave her the right memories. That's how Senya worked. Not brute force, narrative overwrite. She took your past and twisted it into something you'd defend with your life. Lyra, I said carefully, what did they tell you about me? She hesitated. That you betrayed the accord. That you used Kaeli's abilities to fracture Grid 9. That you're trying to restart the war. Kaeli snorted. Classic. But here's the thing, Lyra continued, her voice wavering, they didn't have to tell me that. I remember it. I saw you leave me behind. I saw you walk away as I bled out near the western gate. I remember it, Rael. That pain is real. And that's when I realized, they didn't erase her, they rewrote me. Kaeli touched my shoulder. She's a mirror, she whispered. A weapon built from your guilt. I nodded slowly. Then I have to disarm her. I walked toward Lyra. Hands up. No anger. No argument. Tell me one thing, I said. Back then, in the Shadowfront, who found the blue tag on my neck after the ceiling collapsed? She blinked. Confused. You did, she said. No, I said gently. You did. You were sobbing. You thought it was mine. You stitched it to your sleeve because you didn't want to forget me. I remember the look on your face. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. Mira stepped forward quietly. Your memory. It's been layered. Both versions are inside you. But only one gets oxygen. Kaeli whispered, let us show you the other one. Lyra staggered, and then she dropped to her knees. She started to cry. I dropped beside her, arms around her shoulders, grounding her in something real, not a command, not a mission, just connection. I don't know who I am, she whispered. We'll find out together, I said. Kaeli's voice was firm. But not if Senya finds you first. From the upper conduit, Mira called out, she already has. It started with a sound, just beneath the walls, a low, rhythmic thrum. Like a heart trapped in stone, Kaeli turned sharply. Do you hear that? I nodded. So did Jaren. Even Mira froze, but Lyra, she went still, not afraid, not confused, just silent, then her body jerked backward like something yanked her spine. Her mouth opened in a sharp gasp. She's triggering, Mira said urgently. Senya's pulling her back. We moved fast.